Question number 1. The apical cell theory was given by A. Hofmeister, B. Hanstein, C. Heberland, D. Grew. When you take the apical cell theory, it primarily describes how a single cell gives rise to the maximum of the tissues. So, the apical cell is terminal and it has derivatives. The apical cell divides and becomes meristematic to form the various tissues. So, this was the first theory related to how shoot apex and root apex get differentiated. It has been studied by Hofmeister. While if you take Hanstein's theory, the Hanstein's theory believes in tissue organization in the form of layers. Heberland was a sort of a scientist who primarily is associated with the formation of organs in plant tissue culture, and Grew primarily is a scientist who is associated with the study of internal plant structures or plant anatomy. So, among the choices, the right answer is A. Question number 2. Phylogen is A. Intercalary meristem, B. Apical meristem, C. Primary meristem, D. Secondary meristem. When we take phylogen, phylogen is also termed as cork cambium. It is formed during secondary growth. It is a meristematic tissue which is formed late in the season. The cork cambium gets formed during secondary growth when there is abnormal increase in the diameter of the stem of a tree. Hence, the cork cambium which is formed at a later time is primarily termed as a sort of a secondary meristem. A secondary meristem is one which is formed later on at a later period of time in the plant parts. The right answer is D. Question number 3. Intercalary meristem is derived from A. Protoderm, B. Calyptrogen, C. Lateral meristem, D. Apical meristem. Always the apical meristem gives rise to the intercalary meristem. The apical meristem is a single cell. It is in a state of continuous division. It is metabolically active. On differentiation, a single apical meristem can give rise to several meristems. It could primarily give rise to the primary as well as secondary, and also the intercalary meristems. So intercalary meristems are found especially at the nodal tip of grasses. So intercalary meristems which are found at the nodal tip of grasses are predominantly derived from the apical meristem. The answer here is, the origin is the apical meristem. The answer is D. Question number 4. The term meristem was given by A. Nageli, B. Cohen, C. Hanston, D. Smith. The term meristem has been proposed by Nageli, the first scientist to discover that cells can continuously divide. And they retain the power of cell division. Cells which are capable of getting into both de-differentiation, that is coming back to the original state, as well as re-differentiation. Again they know how to get formed into specialized cells. So this concept of meristem has been proposed by Nageli. Whereas the other choices, Cohen is primarily a sort of a scientist who was associated with writing a book called Elements of Cytology. Hanston proposed the concept of tissue organization, and Smith primarily relates to plant anatomy. But however, the right choice is Nageli, which is associated with the term meristem. The answer is A. Question number 5. The meristem derived from the promeristem is called A. lateral meristem, B. apical meristem, C. primary meristem, D. intercalary meristem. So any meristem which is formed from a promeristem is termed as a primary meristem. The first formed cell is termed as a promeristem. The cell which is going to divide is termed as a promeristem, and this in turn can initiate and it can give rise to the first type of a dividing cells. So the first dividing cells or the first dividing tissues in the plant body constitutes the primary meristem. They are derived from single initiated. The promeristem is termed as an initiating meristem. The answer is C. Question number 6. Cork cambium is A. primary meristem, B. secondary meristem, C. primary tissue, D. promeristem. When you take cork cambium, now cork cambium indicates we have a dividing tissue in the cork cells which are termed as a phellem. The phellem differentiates to form, primarily the cork cells are formed from the phellogen. So when you take the cork cambium is otherwise termed as the phellogen. It is a dividing mass of cells, and the phellogen, which is the dividing mass of cells, can give rise to tissues on the outside as well as it can form tissues on the inside. So we have a meristematic layer. So the meristematic layer is called the phellogen or the cork cambium, and this cork cambium, which is formed at a later period, especially in the outer secondary tissues, which primarily causes increase in diameter. or girth of the stem or the tree is an example of secondary meristem. The right answer is B. Question number 7. Peribelum produces A. cortex, B. pericycle, C. vascular strand, D. both A and C. Whenever we take peribelum, the peribelum is the first tissue which gets formed in plant anatomy. And the peribelum always gives rise to the ground tissue or the cortex. The basic tissue is called the cortex or the ground tissue, and this is derived from the peribelum. In addition to the peribelum, we also have the pleuron. But here, primarily in the case of roots, when we take the peribelum, it gives rise to the ground tissue. The answer is A. Question number 8. The cambium is A. apical meristem, B. lateral meristem, C. intercalary meristem, D. secondary meristem. When you take the cambium, the cambium includes a list of cells which are meristematic. They are in a state of continuous division. And a cambium primarily is a sort of a dividing group of cells, and the dividing group of cells normally occurs between the xylem and the phloem. So, if we have the xylem and the phloem, we have a dividing group of cells, and this dividing group of cells is primarily termed as a cambium. So, as you understand, when you take the cambium, it is an example of a lateral meristem. That is, a lateral meristem is one which is formed at the sides, on either sides of the xylem and the phloem. So, if you have the vascular bundle, and the vascular bundle is made up of the xylem and the phloem, in between the xylem and the phloem, or between two vascular bundles. So, when you take the cambium, if this is a vascular bundle made up of the xylem and the phloem, we have a strip called the cambium. And again, if you have another vascular bundle made up of the phloem and the xylem, we have the cambium getting continued here. Again, the cambium which extends between two vascular bundles also is present. So, we have 1 and we have 2. The first one is termed as intrafascicular cambium. Intra means within. So, within the fascicular structure, the fascicular structure is predominantly made up of xylem and phloem tissues. So, between the xylem and the phloem tissues, we have the presence of the intrafascicular cambium. In addition to the intrafascicular cambium, between two vascular bundles, we have the interfascicular cambium. So, this is interfascicular cambium, this is intra, I-N-T-R-A, and this is I-N-T-E-R. So, this is an evidence to say that cambium is a lateral meristem. The right answer is B. Question number 9. Tunica is A. a mass meristem, B. mantle of meristem, C. internal mass of meristem, C. central mass of meristem. When you take tunica, the term tunica refers to the outermost skin. It is otherwise termed as the outermost layer, which is formed during shoot apex organization. So, when you take a shoot apex, in a shoot apex, the outermost layer, which is continuous, which forms a cover or which forms a mantle, is primarily termed as the sort of a tunica, and in the tunica the cells are meristematic. That is, they can divide in all planes. So, a mantle cover in the shoot apex, which is outermost, which is meristematic, is termed as tunica. So, tunica is an example of a mantle of meristem. The answer is B. Question 10. Corpus is A. mantle of meristem, B. the central part of the meristem, C. the internal mass of the meristem, D. mass meristem. When we take corpus, corpus relates to the internal mass of cells, internal mass of cells in a meristem. So, if the meristem is in the shoot apex is spherical, and we already know the outermost part of the meristem is called the tunica, the central mass of cells, which is central and which forms the bulk of the shoot apex, is termed as the corpus. So, it primarily relates to the central mass, but which is very much internal. So, the internal bulk of a sort of a meristematic tissue is referred to as the corpus. The answer is C. Question number 11. Histogen theory was proposed by A. Nageli, B. Schmidt, C. Heinstein, D. Wolf. When you take the histogen theory, the histogen theory has been primarily been proposed by Heinstein. Heinstein had studied the shoot apex and proposed that there are several layers of organization, and these layers of organization are termed as histogens. So, histogens are layers of organization which gives rise to the shoot apex, and histogens in turn can be differentiated into tunica and corpus. So, it is believed that histogens are meristematic, and they are the starting points for the formation of the different tissues in the plant body. The right answer is C. Question number 12. Which one increases girth of stem or root? A. Xylem, B. Phloem, C. cambium, D. cortex. Whenever there is an increase in the girth of either the stem or the root, this is termed as increase in diameter. So, the diameter increase in the stem or the root results in the formation of secondary growth. The secondary growth of a plant body or the increase in diameter or the thickness of a tree wherein a tree grows in girth and forms the heartwood and the sapwood, which are economically important, is primarily due to the activity of the cambium. The cambium is present between the xylem and the phloem, and the cambium of the many vascular bundles which are surrounding will come together. Hence, there is a linking of the interfascicular cambium and the intrafascicular cambium. Once the interfascicular and the intrafascicular cambium come together, it results in the formation of a cambium ring. And the cambium ring is the starting point for secondary growth. From the cambium, we have the tissues which are cut. It gives rise to the xylem and the phloem on the either side. Hence, increase in girth and diameter is attributed to, under choices, we have xylem. Xylem is a unit which conducts water. B. phloem conducts vascular, is a vascular tissue which primarily conducts the sort of a sucrose as well as the photosynthetates. C. cambium is a meristematic zone, and D is a ground tissue which is called the cortex. So, among the choices, the right answer is C, that is cambium. Question number 13. The grass stem elongates after initial growth due to A. lateral meristems, B. secondary meristems, C. intercalary meristem, D. apical meristem. When you take a grass stem, a grass stem is made up of nodes and internodes. The stem is called a culm. So, after it elongates due to the presence of the apical meristem, after initial growth, primarily at the nodes and at the internodes, we have the presence of intercalary meristems. So, the intercalary meristems give rise to the laterals. It gives rise to the laterals. So, due to the activity of the intercalary meristems, a grass which is a runner is able to form the sort of a secondary branches. So, the answer is C. Question number 14. Dermatogen, peribulum, dermatogen, pleuron and peribulum are A. permanent tissues, B. intercalary tissues, C. secondary tissues, D. meristematic tissues. When we take the plant body, any plant body is made up of the dermatogen, then it is made up of the peribulum and the pleuron in the sequence. Now, if you take these things, all of these together are examples of meristematic tissues. The dermatogen gives rise to the epidermis. The peribulum primarily gives rise to the cortex, and the pleurome gives rise to the vascular bundles. So it forms the epidermis, peribellum gives rise to the ground tissue or the cortex, and the pleurome gives rise to the vascular tissues. So these are the meristematic tissues, and these are the primary plant tissues. So the first form plant tissues like the epidermis, cortex and the vascular tissues are derived from the dermatogen, peribellum and the pleurome. So when you take all of these three together, they are termed as meristematic tissues, and the answer is D. Question number 15. Which meristem helps in increasing girth? A. Lateral meristem or cambium. B. Intercalary meristem. C. Primary meristem. D. Apical meristem. Whenever we take a stem, increase in girth or diameter, or it is also called girth, of any particular stem or a wood, wherein every year there is the formation of a ring. Is due to the activity of lateral meristems. So all the lateral meristems which are present at the sides, the lateral meristems which are present at the sides, they are responsible for increase in girth or diameter of a particular stem. Hence, if you take the lateral meristems are responsible for the formation of the sapwood and the heartwood. The right answer is A. Question number 16. Tunica and corpus are constituents of A. Root apex, B. Shoot apex, C. Mass meristem, D. All the above. If you take the shoot apex organization, or it is also called shoot apex meristem, SAM. When you take SAM or shoot apex meristem, it is primarily made up of two important meristematic tissues called tunica and corpus. While if you take the root apical meristem, RAM, the root apical meristem is always made up of the calyptrogen, and it also has a root cap, and it has basic tissues like the dermatogen which gives rise to the epidermis, etc. So tunica and corpus are constituents of the shoot apex. So the corpus theory, tunica corpus theory, which has been proposed by Schmitz, relates to the shoot apex organization. Hence the answer is B. Question number 17. The tunica cells divide A. periclinally, B. anticlinally, C. both anticlinal and periclinal, D. in all directions. Whenever you take tunica cells, tunica or the mantle cells, which is the mantle, it always divides anticlinal. Anticlinal divisions means perpendicular divisions. If you have a main axis, it divides anticlinal, whereas periclinal, the meaning of the term periclinal means parallel. Like if you take an onion skin, it keeps on dividing periclinally. Periclinal is layer after layer is periclinal division. Anticlinal is perpendicular to the main axis. So, always tunica cells show anticlinal division. So, the answer is B. Question number 18. The cork cambium and vascular cambium are A. Part of the secondary xylem and phloem, B. Part of the pericycle, C. Lateral meristems, D. Apical meristems. Whenever we take the cork cambium and the vascular cambium, they are examples of lateral meristem. The cork cambium is otherwise termed as the phellogen. The phellogen is present outside the plant body. That is, after the primary plant body, we have the phellogen, which is the meristematic region, and it in turn gives rise to the outer bark or the outer wood. All tissues which is formed exogenous in the extrastellar region. On the outside are derived from the cork cambium, whereas all the tissues which are derived on the inside are in the intrastellar region. Are due to the activity of the vascular cambium. So, the cork cambium and the vascular cambium, both of them are present on either sides. Like if you take the vascular cambium, it is present between the xylem and the phloem. If you take the cork cambium is present between the extrastellar region and the intrastellar region. Hence, both of them are derived from the sides, hence they are examples of lateral meristems, and the answer is C. Question number 19. Monocot leaves possess A. Intercalary meristems, B. Lateral meristems, C. Apical meristems, D. Mass meristems. When you take a monocot leaf, a monocot leaf has parallel venation. The parallel venation is because the xylem and the phloem do not segregate, and wherever we have parallel venation, each one is an example of an intercalary meristem. That is, a meristem is formed between tissues. So, there is continuous division between the tissues, which gives rise to the xylem and the phloem on either side, leading to the formation of a parallel venation. So, because due to the presence of an intercalary meristem, we have parallel venation in the case of the leaves, which in turn is a characteristic feature of the monocot leaf. The answer is A. Question number 20. Histogen found at the tip of the root apical meristem is A. Plurom, B. Peribulum, C. Calyptrogen, D. Dermatogen. When you take the root apex, at the root apex, the dividing tissue is termed as a histogen, and which is terminally present or which is present at the tip is predominantly is termed as a calyptrogen. The calyptrogen gives rise to the root cap, which is a protective tissue. So, calyptrogen forming the root cap, position being terminal, it being a histogen, is a characteristic feature of the root apex. The answer is C. 21. The root apex is subterminal because it is A. Covered by root hairs, B. covered by root cap, C covered by epidermis, D under the soil. Whenever you take the root apex, the position is termed as subterminal. This is the terminal position and this is termed as subterminal. Primarily it is subterminal because it is covered by the root cap. Hence the answer is B. Question number 22. Wound healing is due to A. primary meristems, B. secondary meristems, C. ventral meristems, D. all the above. When you talk about wound healing, it is due to the formation of a callus tissue. A callus is derived from any particular meristem which is formed lateral and in response to an injury. So, any meristem which is formed lateral in response and it is formed in the later tissues is primarily termed as a sort of a secondary meristem. So, during wound healing, there is a wound healing is always related to secondary meristems. The answer is B. Question number 23. Totipotency is present in A. meristem, B. cambium, C. phloem, D. cork. When you take totipotency, totipotency is the inherent property of any particular cell, a plant cell, to differentiate and redifferentiate and have the capability to derive and form the entire plant. So, totipotency is a capacity or the genetic potential which is inherent in a plant cell, by means of which the cell can differentiate as well as redifferentiate. To form the entire plant body. That is, a single cell has the inherent, that is inherited capacity to form the entire plant body. So, this is an unique property of dividing cells. The dividing cells of the shoot apex and the root apex are meristematic. Hence, totipotency is a characteristic feature of all meristems. The answer is among A. meristem, B. cambium, C. phloem and D. cork. The answer is meristems, that is A. Question number 24. The tissue which perpetuates itself, A. permanent tissue, B. ground tissue, C. meristematic tissue, D. vascular tissue. When you take a meristematic tissue, a meristematic tissue can always perpetuate itself. That means, a meristematic cell tissue can again give rise to another meristematic tissue. So, this is because it is in a continuous state of cell division. A meristematic tissue is made up of cells which are in a state of continuous division. Thereby, you have the first line, the second line and the third line of meristematic cells. So, a tissue which perpetuates itself is among, we have A permanent tissue, B ground tissue, C is a meristematic tissue and D is a vascular tissue. The right answer is C. Question number 25. Monocot or grass leaves grow by A. lateral meristem, B. intercalary meristem, C. apical meristem, D. secondary meristem. As we understand, whenever we take monocots or grasses, they always have intercalary meristem. The answer is B. Question number 26. Bamboo and grass stems elongate by the activity of A. intercalary meristems, B. apical meristems, C. lateral meristems, D. secondary meristems. Stems of bamboo and grass elongate by intercalary meristems. The intercalary meristems are very conspicuous in the bamboo tree as well as in the stems of grasses. This is very much evident. So, the answer is B. Question number 27. Quiescence center occurs in A. shoot apex, B. root apex, C. both A and B, D. meristematic tissue. A quiescence center is a region of low metabolic activity. However, it is rich in DNA and it is capable of reproduction, that is, it is capable of forming derivatives of meristematic cells. And it is being studied by cloves. By using a radio dye like thymidine, scientists have studied the quiescence center. The quiescence center is always associated with the root apex. We have the calyptrogen, we have the root cap, just above the root cap we have the quiescence center, and the quiescence center is associated with the root apex or root apical meristem and its organization on roots. The answer is B. Question number 28. Cells of the quiescence center are characterized by A. dense cytoplasm and prominent nucleus, B. light cytoplasm and small nuclei, C. dividing regularly to add up to the corpus, D. dividing regularly to add up to the tunica. When you take the quiescence center, always the quiescence center has nuclei which are small and the cytoplasm too is less dense. So, when activity has to happen, the quiescence center, when it divides, the nucleus which is small primarily programs for DNA replication. So, Small nuclei and less dense cytoplasm are the characteristic features of a quiescent center. Hence, the answer is B. Question number 29. The stem of grasses and related plants elongate by the activity of A. Lateral meristem, B. Apical stem, C. Both apical and intercalary meristem, and D is intercalary meristem. When we look at plant elongation, related to grasses or plants, initially a plant grows due to the presence of an apical meristem. As it grows, it forms nodes and internodes, and again from the nodes there is the formation of lateral branches. Along with the laterals, there is thickening of the stems. The formation of the laterals and the main axis as well as the lateral axis is attributed to the presence of apical and intercalary meristems. The right answer is C. Question number 30. Intercalary meristem is found in A. Mint, B. Grasses, C. None of the above, D. Both A and B. If you take mint and grasses, both of them are runners, and when you look at the stems, the stems grow laterally along the soil and they give branches at specific points. So, any branches which is formed from the main stem, we have the formation of the laterals. So, these laterals arise due to the activity of intercalary meristems. So, when we look at the intercalary meristems, we have it as 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. 1 to 5 are examples of intercalary which is present between both the tissues. Hence, in the case of mint and grasses, we have the formation of intercalary meristems. The answer is D.